You've been listening to the Edie Raether Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio and the Humongous Radio Network. Better thinking leads to better decisions, and better decisions create better performance. That is the foundation of Edie Raether's groundbreaking NeuroShift's trademark approach. As a behavioral strategist, best-selling author, and expert in the neuroscience of success, Edie helps people interrupt automatic thinking, replace unproductive patterns, and become the boss of their brain. Her newest book, The 3-Second NeuroShift, reveals how a small shift in thought can create meaningful changes in leadership, performance, resilience, relationships, and life. Discover Edie's books, programs, and speaking resources at edierather.com. That's EDIERAETHER.com. You can also find the Edie Raether Radio Show on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other major podcast platforms. Now, back to the Edie Raether Radio Show. Take it away, Peter.
Hello, everyone. Peter Mingils here. You are listening to us on the Building Fortunes Radio, but we are on the Edie Raether Radio Show. For those people who aren't familiar with Edie, she's been around the industry of self-development and personal development and neuropsychology and a whole bunch of other things forever. It's been decades. And recently I connected with Edie as a result of something I was doing with another gentleman. I was thinking about we are working with Beat Bob. He's a guy that helps kids that have challenges with maybe teenage suicide or drug overdoses and stuff like that. And Edie wrote a book about cyberbullying. She's written several books in her time. And when I called her about that, she says, hey, Peter, your timing is perfect. I just wrote a new book. It's called The 3-Second NeuroShift. And maybe we could do some stuff on the radio show to be able to promote it. Well, I always really enjoyed working with Edie, meaning listening to her on the breakout meetings that she did with Manny. Manny Lopez is a gentleman that actually is like a business consultant, kind of an overall good guy, was doing some stuff with helping kids that are exiting from the foster care system. And that's where I met Edie. And she did several presentations over the year or so that I was on with Manny. And I always found her like, this gal knows her stuff. I mean, she's been associated with this type of stuff. And when she speaks a word or a sentence, you can actually understand that she's lived it for a decade or more. And she really knows what she's talking about. So I was really pleased when she said, hey, I want to push the book. I said, let's go push the book, The 3-Second NeuroShift. And you'll be able to find that on edierather.com. Go there to buy it because that's the most profitable place for her. And she's taken that book and using the profits from that book to help her Wings for Wishes Academy, which is something that helps children as well. So we are on a mission to be able to do as much as we possibly can in the world, as much as we possibly can. Today we're going to finish up some of the other topics that we spoke about. And on this regular radio show, I want her to introduce herself for those people that might be new listeners, because I know we have a lot of people that listen in and they're new. And then we'll get into this week's topic. So, Edie, thanks for being here on your own radio show.
It's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure, Peter. And
So,
you want me to just say a little bit about myself?
Yeah, of course, because we always have brand new listeners. So,
okay,
I brand new heard you for the first time on Manny's speed networking event, and I was fascinated.
Mm-hmm.
So you have fascinating conversations, but your history is excellent. So give us a couple of minute commercial on who Edie Raether is.
Well, I started out as an OT, and I really had a hard time with the physical rehab because I felt so bad for people, young kids that were never going to walk again. And so I ended up in psych, and then I've been started a private practice in the 70s. But in the 70s, what was really transformational for me is I was with Jean Houston for 150 hours. She just passed a couple months ago. And Mark Victor Hansen, the co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul with Jack Canfield, said that she was the most brilliant person walking the earth, and she probably was. So, Peter, I've dedicated 2 of my 8 books to her because she is, other than my parents, the greatest influence on everything I say today. I mean, she just was the spark.
What was her name again? Hold on a second. What was her name again? Because
yeah, it's Jean Houston. Houston, like the city Houston. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In fact, I think she's the granddaughter of Sam Houston, and She did studies back in the 60s. I remember I was working in a psych hospital in New York City at that time. Yeah, I'm giving my age away when I'm talking about working in New York in the 60s, and some of you weren't born until 1999. But anyway, she did studies because that's when LSD came out, and would do studies with her husband, and they would emulate the kind of altered states of consciousness, and there was sometimes some real creativity with the LSD. She would do it all with natural means, with drumming, with just creating an altered state of consciousness, with music, with sound, with meditation, with hypnosis, whatever. And so I really got into the psychology of consciousness, started a doctoral program in it. And then, but I've been speaking also since about 1970, as soon as I moved to Green Bay, Wisconsin, which I'm from Wisconsin. And and I was always intrigued by the mind. I remember I'm certified in Herman brain dominance, the right brain, left brain stuff. And just always, back then it was kind of the paranormal, and just always so entranced. And now so much of what was considered woo-woo back then is now considered neuroscience. So it's taken about 60 years for science to catch up with something that was there hundreds of years ago. And as a psychotherapist, I was doing a lot of brain training and hypnosis and neuroplasticity. We didn't have that term back then, Peter, but I was doing it, and I was getting results. I was with about 4 or 5 psychiatrists, and I think they were kind of almost afraid of me, but I was getting results. So how do you challenge that, right? They didn't understand it, but they understood the results. So, and then I moved to North Carolina. I've written 7 other books, and everything from bullying, sex for the soul, winning, forget selling, because I do a lot of corporate training, Fortune 500 companies, thousands of keynotes on 5 continents, and that's where I get my dopamine. I really do. When I am on stage, I'm like pigs in slop. I am so happy. I was just born to speak, and so here we are. And, I had a talk show on ABC in 1980. I became aware, visualization was the big thing that I became aware of in the 70s. And I started playing with it. And honest to God, everything I visualized manifested. I canceled 3 surgeries, Peter. And I was a guest on a talk show all the time on ABC, a major network. And I thought, this isn't fair. Then they wanted me to bring in the questions, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm bringing the answers, I'm bringing in the questions. She's getting the paycheck. All I get is a free lunch. And that's when I thought, hell's bells, I'm going to have my own talk show. And then, and I just visualized it. It was in minutes that I created a talk show on ABC. And I swear. So when I talk about mind mastery, honey, I haven't just read a chapter on it. I've lived it. And I think, the most recent proof is, that, I came to North Carolina, a lovely state, but I got in with somebody that was just pardoned for his felony and bought like 50 lots from him because he promised a lot and delivered nothing. I grew up in the 50s when somebody's word, if I promise something, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. And so he was going to sell 1 lot. I was leaving a very healthy practice in Wisconsin. Scared me a little bit, and he was saying everything I wanted to hear. And so, I just kept buying all these properties, and he never sold one. And so I went from a mansion to homeless, but I bounced back. And, as Winston Churchill says, never, never, ever quit. I had the lot. I'm on one of the best spots on Lake Norman, and it's a 500-mile lake near Charlotte. I wasn't going to give up on it. And so I just practiced everything I am teaching you. and I can tell you it works because I'm sitting here and I'm not homeless. I have a lovely home and looking out on an incredible view. So I want to share with others what I not only know about, studied, but have lived. So that's a little bit about me. Oh, and my eighth book, which is the most exciting, is the 3-Second NeuroShift. It's my best work. It's a brand, it's a movement, it's much more than a book, and it will be a documentary. So lots to look forward to, so much to share. And we just started the Edie Raether show. I didn't even know that. I thought I was a guest, and it's like, oh, I have my own show. So here we are, and I'm ready to rock.
Yeah. Well, I started learning, when I went to college, I graduated, I guess, in 1984. So I'm 64 now. So I graduated in 84. And through all that education, no one ever told me about, like, the principles in Think and Grow Rich or, the stuff that Earl Nightingale was talking about, and Nightingale Conant was a company that was selling self-development stuff. No one ever said that to me. I realized that I have to invest in myself. I thought, I don't know what I was thinking, but I started to listen to audio cassettes. And Brian Tracy was one of my first ones because he was a sales trainer. But I realized that by listening to like Napoleon Hill and Earl Nightingale, they were talking about like you got to master your mind. Like you have to. If you can't master your mind, done. And I applied those principles. So I was like, I gotta see if this is BS, for lack of a better expression, or if it's real. So if it's BS, I'll probably figure it out right away. If it's real, and it works, I could probably direct a pretty good portion of my life, and I'd have more control. I can't control everything, but I can control a lot of it. And to the extent that I do, I'll probably be successful. To the extent that I forget about these principles, it's probably going to hurt me. And I can give you countless examples like you can. So this concept of the 3-second NeuroShift, we started last week talking about the book, and there's a workbook attached to it. So I got to give you my little commercial plug. So when I'll never forget, I was with Electrolux. My manager said to me, listen to this tape. He gave me a tape by a guy named Robert Schuller. Didn't do it for me. I said, Joe, I'm not really sure what this is about. Then he gave me a tape from Zig Ziglar. I'm a New York kid. So I'm New York on the street, and I hear Zig Ziglar with the Southern twang talking about kicking a cat. And I'm like, Joe, like, what are you trying to do, kill me here? Like, give me. And he said, well, then here, you go buy your own. So he flipped me a book from Nightingale Conant, and I had to buy my own audio cassettes, and it was $60. And the reason why I mentioned $60, I'm like, wait a minute. I guess, like, you're asking me to invest in myself, and why wouldn't I do that, number one? Because I'm probably, the one most interested in me than anybody else. Then that being narcissistic or anything else like that, but I want to take responsibility, so sure. So I bought that audio cassette, and it worked like crazy. Well, here we're talking about you with a book, The 3-Second NeuroShift, and you can buy it from EdieRaether.com. Plug. Go buy it and buy a couple of copies so you can give it away to other people. But yours comes with a workbook, and with that workbook, somewhere around $50, I think you said, you can get the book and the workbook, and you can invest in yourself and other people and make a difference in your world that you'll be telling when you're 83. So I'm as serious as it gets. When you run across, like, there's entertainment, and then there's entertainment and education, and then there's like life's instruction booklet. Well, I look at the stuff that you're talking about here on the 3-Second NeuroShift as being, okay, if you ever wanted to know how and have the mechanism in the workbook and be able to plug into the radio shows, so you were, you thought you started off as a guest, and I'm like, no way. if I get Edie come on every week, we're going to help change the world for a lot of people. We may not change the whole world because not everybody listens, but we can change the world for those people that do. And I'm serious. The stuff that I learned by investing in myself when I was in my early 20s, I still use today. And you can say, well, not only do you use it, Peter, did it ever work for you? I'm like, oh, my God, of course. So I'm echoing a lot of the things that you're saying, and a lot of people are maybe hearing it for the first time, and they might want to learn a little bit about what you mean by the 3-Second NeuroShift. And we spoke about dopamine. So let's talk about the 3-Second NeuroShift book and workbook first, and then we'll play our commercial. Then we'll come back and I want you to talk about dopamine. Fair enough?
Yeah, that's very fair. And one of my TEDx talks is AI and digital dopamine making us dumb, and it is, Peter. So we'll do the break, and then we'll come back and hit it hard.
Okay. So tell us about the book and the workbook real quick.
Oh, okay. Well, the book is basically, I was just going to do another TED Talk, and I thought, that's catchy, the 3-second NeuroShift. And they said, well, do you have research on this? And I said, yeah, 60 years. That's not research. And I'm like, oh, dear. So I look it up. AI is wonderful, right? I look it up. I have in my book, I think it's 8 pages of listings of research all over the world, including Princeton and UCLA and Stanford, good schools. And there's tons. And listen to this, Peter. It's all 3 seconds. From 1.5 to 3 seconds, we can change the trajectory of our lives. And it's a matter of pausing, pivoting, redirecting. And in the book, I have models that show exactly how you can interrupt an old behavior pattern that no longer serves you well, whether it's an addiction, negative thinking, self-sabotage. It doesn't matter. Something in your parenting style, you can interrupt it. And in 3 seconds, redirect and change your future. And I was talking to my assistant, and I said, God, the back of the cover, I didn't remember this. But this is what it's about. Every 3 seconds, your brain opens a doorway. The question is, will you walk through? And with that happy note, we'll take your break and come back and hit dopamine.
There we go. Perfect. We'll be right back.
You've been listening to the Edie Raether Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio and the Humongous Radio Network. Better thinking leads to better decisions, and better decisions create better performance. That is the foundation of Edie Raether's groundbreaking NeuroShift's trademark approach. As a behavioral strategist, best-selling author, and expert in the neuroscience of success, Edie helps people interrupt automatic thinking, replace unproductive patterns, and become the boss of their brain. Her newest book, The 3-Second NeuroShift, reveals how a small shift in thought can create meaningful changes in leadership, performance, resilience, relationships, and life. Discover Edie's books, programs, and speaking resources at edierather.com. That's EDIERAETHER.com. You can also find the Edie Raether Radio Show on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other major podcast platforms. Now back to the Edie Raether Radio Show. Take it away, Peter.
And we are back. Peter Mingils here with Edie Raether. EDIERaether.com is where you go buy the book, the workbook, and some other things that she's got, and we're constantly helping her build that stuff out as well. So for those people listening in, take the chance, make the investment. You're investing in yourself. So, Edie, we stopped last week talking about dopamine. And a lot of people have heard the term. They may not know what it is. But I'll let you talk to us about dopamine.
Well, I find it interesting. I coined myself as a motivational speaker for 60 years now, almost 60 years. And that's just because other people, it's a key word. But to be really honest, it's overrated. It's way overrated, Peter, because motivation is really, it's an external force. It's basically, if I want to motivate you to do something, in a sense, and manipulation isn't necessarily a negative thing. As parents, we are manipulating our child when we say, clean your bedroom and I'll give you a quarter. I guess you could call that manipulation. So I think we've got to get rid of the stigma. But motivation is externally trying to change another person's behavior or ourselves if it's self-motivation. And with, whether it's goal setting or a reward, or you get a hot fudge sundae when you're done with if you get an A, whatever it is. But it's kind of like the carrot and stick. But that's limited. It's very, very limited, Peter. So, I think, who was it, Pink, had written a book, the word comes to mind. I think the book was Drive. And it kind of introduced the internal motivation, which is really where it's at. I mean, the boogie button of the year, the employee of the month, in getting now I wouldn't mind if the parking spot is right outside the door of where I work, but that's not bad, Peter. None of that is bad. Does it motivate me? No. I am on a mission. I'm in my 83rd year of life. All of the proceeds from the book go to I Believe I Can Fly and my mission with Wings for Wishes Academy. And that's my motivation. Hopefully it brings some revenue so that I can pay the bills, and because it costs money to have the show here. It costs money to do marketing. But is that what drives me? No. And so when people are living life on purpose and have a mission, there's an internal drive. And when it's in alignment with our values, we become unstoppable. And so dopamine is much more of a factor in motivation than as we traditionally refer to motivation. If I'm motivated, the people that are really successful have that internal drive. And that drive is really fueled by dopamine. And, I've been speaking a lot at neurology and psychiatry conferences, addiction conferences. It's big. I mean, I'm hitting it big time. All over Singapore, Spain. It's cool because I do believe that I'm onto something. And the fact is that dopamine is that internal driving force. It is the engine. And so if people are not getting some things done, procrastination is so misunderstood. We treat it externally. That's a topical, solution to something that's internal. So what it is that we really, once when we're in alignment, what do I value? I value on my tombstone, making a difference. How do I do it? It's why I have the Wings for Wishes nonprofit, Wings for Wishes Academy. There's a lot of people that are trying to intercept on what I'm doing. So it's Wings for Wishes Academy because as a therapist, I am so sick of undoing and redoing people's messed up minds. I'm serious. I mean, it's counterproductive. It's not very time, conscious. So prevention is always a better answer. And so I'm thinking, excuse me, if we wire our kids right at the right time for right thinking, we won't listen to the news and find, I live near Charlotte. It's all kids killing kids, 14 years old. And so I can prevent that. I can prevent bullying. I can take a child, if I get them before the age of 7, and make sure that they're president of the United States. And even if their parents are on crack cocaine, I can make that happen. So that's why I'm in this. But here's the crux of it, because we were talking a little bit about that last week. So if people want to know more about what I just said, go listen to our previous program. So here's the scoop. It's dopamine. That's right. First we make our habits, and then our habits make us. We are what we repeatedly do. I think that was Aristotle. That's not an original from Edie Raether. And so if we establish healthy habits early on, your job as a parent will be so easy. If you establish respect as a way of being. Now, I've talked to people that are working with preschoolers, and the F-bomb is coming up, and they're slapping and doing, but somebody taught them that. My parents never hit me. I don't hit. That's not how I solve problems. So you have to realize, if you say to your child, don't smoke cigarettes, but you're smoking in front of them, the role modeling and what they see is going to have more impact. So you've got to be consistent. You've got to be consistent and in alignment with your true values. When you know why you're on this earth, and we're all here for a special reason. I don't care if it's making poppy seed cake. Mine was always bigger and more global. It just was. I remember it as a child. So it's to thine own self be true. When we have that alignment, nobody has to motivate us. Nobody has to push me to learn more about dopamine or do another TEDx talk or the 3-second NeuroShift. I'm obsessed with it. And it's a good obsession. Nobody's getting hurt. Nobody's getting drunk. As long as I'm not doing it while I'm driving, right? And so what dopamine is about is it hooks us. And it is it's an internal addiction that supersedes all other addictions. I don't care if it's alcohol, drugs, crack, cocaine, meth, whatever you might be fighting. It isn't really the cocaine or the alcohol. It is the fact it's the good feeling of dopamine that's really the driving force. So the alcohol, the drug that you might, whatever it is, and I look at anxiety. It's a bad habit. Anxiety is, I know there are clinical reasons behind it. I'm not stupid. But for a lot of people, it's just a misuse of the imagination. It's something that you learned and you repeat it. And anything you repeat is going to give us a release of dopamine. So you know what you do? You do more of it. It's a fault. Let's just take anxiety. I don't do drugs. I never have, never will. So for those of you who are pretty clean in that respect, let's just take anxiety. It's what you know feels good, so you repeat it, and we become delusional. Let me give you a quick example. Oliver is a cat that one of my patients had brought to me, just to show me, a little cute little Russian blue kitten. It got away, probably almost 10 years ago. She was here on Kaiser Island, I bet you, for 4 months, 4 hours a day, looking for that cat. Listen to this. This is how we're all so connected, Peter. The day she called me and said, I'm back from California. You know how clients will give you an update. I had a baby, this, that. That day, Peter, guess who showed up in my yard?
The cat?
Oliver, the cat.
Wow.
So, if some of you are familiar with the 100th monkey theory, we are all so connected. When my thought was so focused on that cat, it appeared. This is years later. This was probably about 3-4 years ago. I would say 7 years I didn't see the cat. And you know how it's an adult cat now. And you know how at first you don't see things, and then all of a sudden there's something about the face, and it's like, oh my God, that's Oliver 7 years later. Now Oliver comes, he lets me pet him. I've gotten that far. I still haven't held him, but it's interesting. And so for people that are getting dopamine, for example, there's so many anxious people, and there's going to be a ton more because of COVID, because they grew up with a mother that said, don't touch the doorknob, don't do this, get your hand away. There's more chemicals than what we're cleaning our hands with if it's not soap and water, that, we just have to kind of keep things in balance. But he'll come to my sliding glass door. He's on the deck, and he's tormented with, should he come in? Here's the interesting thing, Peter. The cat stays on the other side of the door. Now, he has walked in a few times, but when the door closes, he panics. So I leave it open, let all the bugs in, and then he feels safe. So the interesting thing is, this is how worry is a wish you don't want. Fear is negative goal setting. This is how delusional our brain becomes, because we are drugged with what we know. And so the cat doesn't feel like it's safe coming inside. Inside is pretty safe. I'm not going to hurt it. Never have. I've been feeding him for years. I got another one. Loves it when they lick each other. It's all cool. But he feels more safe outside, where we have coyotes on the island. That isn't safe. But in that cat's mind, The wild outdoors is safer to him. And so everybody that's on this call that is suffering from anxiety, and I do have a chapter in the book, probably a few, is that your mind becomes delusional of what is safe. But he knows that's what he knows. He's had 10 years outside. It's familiar, and in his mind, it's safe, when in fact, coming inside is where the real security is. So those of you that suffer from anxiety, just know that your mind may be tricking you into a false sense of safety and security. And that means, what is behind our existence? The strongest driving force is that we feel safe and secure. But my question to you is it based on delusional thinking of what you know, what you've done for the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years? And is it delusional? And with that happy thought, I don't know if you want to go to break, but otherwise I'm going to go more into dopamine.
Okay, no, you're good. And a lot of people, obviously, with anxiety, for whatever reason, now they're given drugs. So you go into a doctor, they click their pen, they write a prescription on a piece of paper, and then you're hooked. And unfortunately, some of those drugs are really bad, both short-term
Exactly,
and
the side effects. And I love a lot of our doctors, but I don't love all of them. Because I've said, do you have people that smoke, that drink, have anxiety? I have somebody that was on like 7 anti-anxiety drugs. I saw her twice, 2 times, and the book could probably do more. And she's off all her drugs and feels great and is free of the side effects. And, when they advertise them on TV, they show them in a hot tub overlooking a lake. But underneath it's like, could cause heart attack, could do kidney failure, could cause suicidal tendencies. So, they're committed in their ads to admit all the side effects. But visually what we're seeing is the happiest couple in the world. So don't be tricked. And try something like this that's more organic, that's natural, no negative side effects. I had somebody, Peter, I may have mentioned that in a previous call. I had somebody that the doctor said, you have to live with it. You have chronic pain, okay, and go home and live with it. Wait a minute. Why is that doctor not referring that person to someone like myself? Why? She came in. I was doing Groupon. I was just getting started. Thought she'd try it. She reduced her meds and her pain by 75%. And I think it was after one session. I only saw her twice. But this is incredible stuff. So know that there are other options. And if you're in the medical world, please be open to these other options, because I've found a lot of closed-mindedness. Well, this is what we do. We write out prescriptions. Well, that isn't always the best solution to the answer or the problem. And so, as we're talking about dopamine as being that internal driving force, remember, it reinforces the predictable. It reinforces what we already know. It's kind of like our puppy dogs and our pets. They like the same spot, the same rug. You know what I mean? Our children like it. They like their little... Yeah,
I just want to point out, so does social media. Social media learned a long time ago that dopamine was probably one of the most powerful drugs that you create in your own body, because they constantly play on it. So that's why you sit there and doom scroll forever. People waste, people I talk to say, I'm so busy. And then you look at, maybe if you looked at their day and you'd say, well, what were you busy doing? Doom scrolling. Sometimes, whether it's a YouTube short or another reel or Facebook post or Instagram pictures or Pinterest or whatever the heck it was before or now, they are playing up on the idea of what you're talking about with this dopamine being such a powerful chemical. And they're multi-billion-dollar companies.
Exactly. And I don't know if you watched it, Peter, but my last TEDx talk is AI and digital dopamine making us dumb. Well, it's doing a heck of a lot more, and it addresses everything that you're saying. And the bottom line is, I can't remember, I gave the talk a few years ago already, that Google makes like $172 $172 per person per year on exactly what you're saying. I don't scroll. I do when I lost my son, I put a Facebook post on. That's the first one probably in a year. So there are people like me that don't use it at all for that. I don't scroll. I'm not hooked. So if they're making a couple $100 on people like you and me, there's people that they are making thousands per person on. And they don't give a rip about your health. They don't. They are a for-profit organization. They have some pretty good psychologists. They can afford it. And they don't care about you. They only care about hooking you because then they can have more ads and it puts more money in their pocket and their board smiles. And so there again, it's prevention. I mean, I cannot believe, I don't have the chart right in front of me now, but, until you're 3 years old, you shouldn't even be touching a phone. I see kids that are not even walking yet, and they are, and parents using it as a babysitter. So you are hooking that child on the most dangerous drug from the time that they leave the womb. You know what I mean? It's not Absolutely. A babysitter. When you're driving, when I was driving, I would always play games in the car with my kids. We didn't have all the video stuff and all of that. And doing curiosity things, or if we pass the cow in the field, what does the cow say? Where do we get our milk from? I was teaching them all the time. It was interacting with my children, doing things to build character. But now we just whip a phone, give them a phone, keep them quiet. If you're going to do that, then don't make babies, really. If you're not going to be a parent, because parenting is a lot of mentoring and teaching and not just giving them what they want. Because what they want is more of what they know, which is dopamine, and the way you're giving it. Now, there's healthy ways to get dopamine. But if you don't do, I'll give you an example, Peter. I have vacation rentals in my house. That's how I got out of the mess. I cannot believe in the recent years how many people come. I have one of the best spots on a 500-mile lake. I've been told that by every realtor. They never leave the apartment. They don't even look at the sunrise, the sunsets. They're spectacular. You know why? Because their face is looking in their phone, and I'm thinking, why did you spend money to come here? Because what I have to offer. See, so if you're a parent, and I remember always going on nature walks with my kids, doing things where you're introducing them to healthy foods. My niece is a pediatric chiropractor. She's got 3 little boys. I mean, they don't eat potato chips because she wouldn't give them to them. They eat kale chips, and they love them. Why? Because at an early age, they were eating healthy foods. They don't drink sugary soft drinks or sugary juices. So many of the juices have a lot of sugar, and we know that.
Tons of it.
Yeah, it's tons.
Sugar's addictive. Sugar triggers your dopamine.
And it's behind cancer and everything else, and obesity, and now we have childhood obesity. But you've got to teach them, And when a child does well, what do you reward them with? Not something that's junk food, because now you're associating in their brain that if you do well, you get to screw up your body and your mind. And you go, so now you're an adult, and oh my God, you just got a raise. So I guess I'm going to go get drunk and celebrate. Isn't there a better way to celebrate? But those are the things. I'm going to treat myself, and especially with the obesity problem. What is it? If it's not there, but I think in the United States, 72% are either overweight or obese, and that is one of the primary causes of all deaths. We eat our graves with our mouths. And so, but there again, it's because your parents probably use that as a reward instead of giving them, and I love ice cream, I think I mentioned it before, but I take 1 tablespoon, and I'm happy with it because that's what I know. I don't have to have a whole cone. But I love it. So it's just a matter of developing, these kind of habits. And then remember, dopamine is released with whatever it knows. So if you get used to only 1 tablespoon, you don't want more. But if you get used to, eating, 5 cones or something, or I mentioned in one of the shows that I ate a half a gallon. That was before I got wise, right? But that's what you know. And the other thing that that dopamine loves is it's released with curiosity. So, curiosity killed the cat. It's also killing us. It's at least killing our minds. But the dopamine is intrigued with, and that's why we want to open the next email or the next scroll, because we're curious. And curiosity is such a beautiful trait. I mean, I think if it weren't for curiosity, we wouldn't have the light bulb. All inventions start with curiosity. So we want to reward it, yes, and dopamine does. But if the only way you or your child is getting, and I'm not saying just children, because adults are hooked. I mean, it's been going on for a while. You're now an adult. That, yeah, you're curious. You just want, how many of you, right before you go to bed, you're just going to check your Facebook page? 2 minutes and you'll be in bed. And 2 hours later, you are still.
You do. Absolutely.
You're
still
there. Yep.
Let's do this. Let's remind people that they can go buy the book and the workbook and other books as well on edierather.com. That's Edie, E-D-I-E, Raether, R-A-E-T-H-E-R.com. And then usually you like to give us a hint, talk about that curiosity about what we might talk about on future radio shows. So as we wrap this one up.
Oh, my God. Oh, I didn't realize this much time had passed.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? You know what, Peter? I have a couple in mind, but I didn't get into very much of this yet. Can we do another one on dopamine?
Absolutely, sure show. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we do a whole series on
I want to get in. The things that hook us the most. In case you guys want to know, the ultimate dopamine jackpot is number 1 is sex, okay, and why it's addictive. And why people have affairs. In fact, I did my master's thesis on why people have affairs, basically. And so, anyway, sex is one, and the brain just wires itself to repeat whatever is created. And then porn. I mean, we have problems with porn, so that can become, porn is an endless novelty. It's endless dopamine. And then we have, look at all the rapes we have. And sometimes they kill their victims. It's on 2020 and what's the other one? Dateline, all the time. Why are there porn addicts? Why are there sex addicts? Because it was their first experience with dopamine. Now, if you were a cheerleader or you played in the band or you tossed a football, and you had that dopamine high from passing the football, or Michael Jackson, not Jackson, what am I thinking? Michael Jordan, love him. He got his dopamine at an early age, throwing the ball, right? And so that is what he is focused on. And so if you and your child, you got to get their first dopamine hit is going to be the one. The first is always it has the most impact on the brain. So you got to know that sex isn't just physical, it's biochemical. It's the brain's biggest dopamine jackpot. People aren't addicted to sex. They're addicted to the dopamine loop sex creates. Now, just as a little teaser, we'll also be talking about, guess what the other one is? Chocolate chip cookies. I don't know why chocolate chip, but it's chocolate chip cookies. And the third is shopping, and that's probably mine. I love thrift shops. When I can get a $1,000 outfit for $1, it's hard to turn it down. But anyway, so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how dopamine has affected our IQs. I think I mentioned previously that the average IQ in my age group is almost 15 points higher than the average IQ in a child today. So we're going to get more into that. So, and then how it's affecting workplace productivity, which is down about, 75%? I have it in one of my talks for corporations. So, yeah, if we can do that, and then the other one I had prepared, that we'll do after that is protect your peace. I find that people need to learn the ways to protect their peace. And that's what's coming next. That's
Perfect.
next.
Excellent. So make sure you go buy the book and the workbook. Refer this to your friends. You'll find us everywhere because we post it on Building Fortunes Radio, Humongous Radio, Amazon, all over the place. Now we're even putting it on YouTube and Facebook. So for all of our raving fans, make sure you check out EdieRaether.com and buy the book and come back next week and listen to the previous radio shows as well. We even put up a special page. If you go to buildingfortunesradio.com/Edie, E-D-I-E, you'll be able to hear all the radio show spots in one place. So, Edie, thanks for being here. Thanks for making a big difference.
Thank you for having me, Peter. Thank you.
Yeah, you have no
And thanks
clue.
to all our listeners, right? What was that, honey?
Yep, we have great conversations with our listeners about how much they love your stuff, and they're exploring this, and including members of my family. They're taking a look at it as well. So thans for making a big difference in the world. Thanks for helping out the kids. We're going to catch everybody next
Peter,
time.
I got one more thing.
Sure.
Yeah. Are we still on?
We're still on.
Okay, yeah. We're going to start putting quizzes on my website and tip sheets on that are going to summarize what we've talked about that you can kind of in a workbook page. So that's coming soon. It's coming soon. So after every show, you can actually have a free download. Just wanted to mention that. I'm done.
Yeah, perfect. Well, make sure you check us out again. We'll be back soon. And thanks, everybody, for listening in.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. You've just finished listening to the Edie Raether Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio and the Humongous Radio Network. We hope today's program challenged the way you think, gave you practical ideas you can use, and inspired you to create positive change in your work and life. Edie Raether has spent more than 5 decades helping people and organizations rewire old patterns, unlock greater potential, and turn insight into action. As a keynote speaker, best-selling author, behavioral strategist, and creator of NeuroShift, Edie is changing the way the world thinks, one mind at a time. Visit EdieRaether.com. That's EdieRaether.com to explore her books, speaking programs, training resources, and her newest book, The 3-Second NeuroShift. On behalf of Edie Raether, Peter Mingils, and everyone at Building Fortunes Radio and the Humongous Radio Network, thank you for listening. You can hear the Edie Raether Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio, Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other major podcast platforms. Until next time, remember, change your thinking, change your choices, and change your world.